Okay, and we are live. Let me go ahead and get Edward in here. All right, what's up, bro?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, bro. I wanted to do a video with you. I want to talk about intercultural dating and the difference between African American women and other Black women in the diaspora, and whatever thoughts, feelings, or experiences you may have had with that, because I know you've talked about this in the past on other hangouts.
Absolutely. Well, intercultural dating, and I wish I'm gonna try to shorten it because I definitely would like to make this like a hashtag or something. It's something that I've talked about or mentioned because number one, it needs to be talked about because with black people, we tend to go to the extremes of everything. Either you only date African American women or women that's your next door neighbor on your block, or you just go to the whitest and brightest female you can go to. There is no, and most of these people do this. When I say people, I mean particularly black men do this not understanding what they're really lacking. They don't understand what's attracting them to non-black women. And what it usually comes down to is it comes down to femininity. Our women, as a group, have a femininity problem in which that comes from their disposition to disrespect. And what happens is men long for femininity. That's what men want. And femininity is even beyond looks to a certain extent. Not to say that you can date an ugly fat chick that's feminine, but you get what I'm saying. That's that kind of beauty's in the inside. It's how you move, how you dress yourself. It's about being majestic versus being like thoughtish, like things like that. It matters and it appeals to men. So I came up with intercultural dating as a concept. On it's a play on the word interracial dating, and it's to really have black men number one
Okay, hold
understand.
on. You cutting out, man.
Oh, okay. Hold on one second. But so it cutting out bad. Anyway, to slow it down, I came up with intercultural dating as a play on interracial dating because the race is not really the issue; it's the culture that's the issue. And pretty much, what black men need to do is start looking at black women that come from other cultures, both in the United States as well as out the United States. Because a big issue that black men have is that a lot of brothers are not culturally aligned with the mainstream black community for whatever reason. And rather than saying, I'm just going to find a Becky or a Maria, they need to also start looking at black women that come from other cultures, both in the United States and out.
Okay, now so I wanna now specifically let's talk about groups like Afro Latinas. You have any particular experience with them?
Yes, those are the ones I date the most, and those are the ones I like the most. Well, so far. Um, First of all, Afro Latinas on the Western Hemisphere. I will say this: there is a lot of Afro Latinas in the United States, but there's also a lot of your black celebrities that you don't know. Tatiana Ali, the youngest daughter on the Fresh Prince, is Afro Panamanian. Um, the woman on I Think I Love My Wife, Gina Torres, she's Afro Latina. Obviously, Zoe Saldana, and a lot of your celebrities that you don't even know, black women, are Afro Latina. Amara La Negra, even though she's coming up, she's not a celebrity. She's on Love and Hip Hop. She's Dominican, even though she was born in Miami. And as you can see, they have a different culture as far as just how they do. They have a different aura than the average African American chick, and a lot of dudes can't put their finger on it. They don't know that's what it is. My personal experience with Afro Latinas is very good because I'm a shorter individual. I'm 5'5", but I'm light skinned. And one thing about Afro Latinas, because that's true for the Latin community as a whole. And this is a good thing and a bad thing is that um, being light skinned and with Afro Latinas is a plus. It just is. Does that mean that they're all absolutely color struck? No, but it is a plus. Also, they tend to not have an issue with the height thing either as much because in the Latin community, I mean, height is important no matter what woman. But in general, it's a plus. But some people don't have an issue. Some people have more issues with the lack of it than others. So I've had a great relationship. I've dated like 2 Dominicans, one chick that was from Belize, which is around Honduras, and I'm going to Brazil in September. So yeah. Oh, the last thing I'm gonna say too is more black people went to Latin America in the slave trade than they did to America. So a lot of people don't understand that there is more black people in a lot of Latin American countries than there are in the United States of America. Maybe
Right.
not like the smaller countries, but Brazil has double. Like when you look at dark skin, Brazil has more dark skinned Africans. I'm talking about full blooded Africans in Brazil than the entire African American population. Times a factor of 2. They have about 100 million black people. Not like, oh, they're black based on the one drop rule. That's something that a lot of African Americans don't know. But they're also Afro Latinas in Colombia, Panama. Any Latin country has Afro. In fact, Mexico has just recognized Afro Latinegros, which is black Africans. Mexico.
Okay. Yeah, I had heard about that. And then Mexico has a sizable population of a black population as well.
They have a sizable population. Another thing too, for me personally, the combination Afro Latinas are pretty much my favorite. I would marry a Dominican if it wasn't for the fact that the way a lot of Dominicans are wired, I just know they won't be faithful. Other than that, I'd marry a Dominican. They're one of the most beautiful women I've seen. And some of them got a little bit of Spanish in them, but a lot of that is like 20%. They're black. If they were here, they would be black. And you see that in New York. I mean, they would be black. Not no, oh, she's really Hispanic. They're just saying she's black. No, they would be black. And they don't have this thing where they perm out their hair and all this bullshit. You know, this is why they tend to have longer hair. Not because they do, but because they tend not to fuck their hair up through weave and all of that. They got other issues like Afro Latinas can be color struck. So, because that's a part of the Latin culture in general, and because African American women, black people put at the bottom in these countries, that can feed into that as far as their class system. But at the same time, if you learn how to speak Spanish, I mean, you got Afro Latina women and white dudes are not even looking at that are like Kelly Rowland types. So, and that's not a rarity. So anyway.
Okay, I got you. Now, I was gonna ask, now what would you say are the differences in your experience of Afro Latinas when they interact with black men in America? How is it different from interacting like on dates and stuff and just day to day with like an African American female?
Well, Afro Latinas tend to be more feminine because, again, they come from cultures that are more patriarchal. Because the Latin culture is a lot more patriarchal. It's machismo culture, and you see that. In fact, there was a guy I had on my hangout a while ago, and he was Afro-Colombian, and I need to get him on there. And he said even with them, it's a stark difference. So they expect the man to be a man. Now, at the same time, if they're in the United States, you know, they can be warped by the United States culture because it's a powerful culture. The United States culture is a gravity well. So they are, but at the same time, even Afro Latin women, they kind of know how to turn that shit off to a certain extent. They know how they may be like that to a certain extent, but unlike most African American women, where they don't understand that what they're doing is not. When I say wrong, I tell people this: fuck what black men think. My question is, as a woman, are you getting the best outcomes the easiest way, acting the way you act, being in that constant masculine energy? We know the answer is no because women complain about it. Afro Latino women tend to understand how to leverage men a lot better. They understand they have to give men what they need in order to get what they want. This is not a good example of an Afro Latino woman, but a good combination of a American culture and Latin culture would be Cardi B. I'm not saying dudes should take Cardi B seriously or date her, but if you look at Cardi B's relationship with men in general, just the concept of men, and compare Cardi B to Amber Rose, and you see the difference. Amber Rose believes men are something to be used and discarded, versus Cardi B is more like a recycler. She'll give to get, and she tends to not have this chip on her shoulder when it comes to men, even though they come from almost the exact same background. They go about men, black men, in completely different ways. I don't know if you know Cardi B, but or really followed her. I have, and I haven't followed Amber Rose, but I know about Amber Rose, and they are very different in how they approach men. And part of that is her Latin culture in her, even though she deals with black men. So yeah.
Okay. Now the part of Cardi B that I know, I know the hip hop part of Cardi B. The rapper Cardi B. Now I have not really followed her like on Instagram or anything like that. But you say that she does have. I mean, she does have a distinctive, different way
Yeah,
that
I
she.
don't follow Cardi. Look, I'm not saying that Cardi B is somebody you need to be idealized as far as what Afro Latina is, but in the context of American culture mixed with that Latin culture, Cardi B is a good example. Like, she's from the Bronx, from New York. I'm not technically followed. I don't follow her, but I do go to her channel every so often because I remember when she came out of World Star Hip Hop, she was an Instagram comedian, and then this is before she got what she got on Love and Hip Hop. Now I do follow a Marilyn Negra. That is who I do follow, and she has a lot of. She's a good example. If you look at her and you look at the typical African American woman that's dark skinned, you can tell, even though she deals with colorism and stuff as well in the entertainment industry, you can tell she is not insecure about her being black. You can tell. Versus a lot of African American women that are dark skinned, they're just ashamed of being black, and they project that out with a lot of different
Yeah,
people.
and I hate that, bruh, because
Yeah.
to me, black is beautiful. You know what I mean? It's something it's a beautiful thing. It's something to cherish. It's something to be proud of. And when you have these African American females that want to walk around and they down themselves for being black, that makes them, to me, a lot less attractive.
No, absolutely. And American Negra is beautiful, and most of the time she has an afro on. And most of the time she has her afro. She rarely corn. She never cornrows her hair. She doesn't always have an afro, but she has an afro probably 80% of the time. And a few times she doesn't is because it's a photo shoot. But most of her photo shoots she has an afro. You can tell she's comfortable in her own skin, and that's credit probably to her mom because her dad wasn't around. So that's credit to her mom because a lot of people don't understand that colorism is passed down. That insecurity of your blackness, that comes from the women. That typically doesn't come from a man because you got to think about it. If you're a dark-skinned woman, then chances are that's because a dark-skinned man fucked a dark-skinned woman. So that dude chose that woman. So that dude is not going to have sex with a dark. That dude, if you're there, you're evidence that dude will have sex with a black woman. You know what I'm saying? So the colorism is usually not passed down. You don't usually have these situations where you got these color-struck fathers and the women they had kids with are dark skinned. You never see that. So usually what happens with colorism is that comes from the females because colorism affects the women viscerally a lot more than it does the men. That's why so when you say black is beautiful, this is a big reason why a lot of women are not like keeping their bodies in shape because they really feel they're ugly, so there's no point. Versus you now going back to the dating thing, when you look at black women of other cultures, they either have their bodies in shape or if they are bigger, they make up for it and acting like they got some goddamn sense. Extra, if you notice. And you see that even in Caribbeans, Afro Caribbeans, where I can argue in many ways Afro Caribbeans can be more aggressive than African Americans, but they are aggressive in points. They're not I have issues with men aggressive. They can be just more passionate. And that's another thing
Okay, well,
too.
you cut out a little bit at the end there, though.
What I was saying is they're not even Jamaicans or Haitians are not I'm going to be aggressive towards men because I have an issue with men are aggressive. They can be more passionate. That's what I meant. Versus with our women tend to be aggressive only towards their men. And then in other ways, they kind of have this culture where they have kind of embraced the sassy girl, even though that's the main reason that life is harder for them than it otherwise needs to be.
Right, right. Now, okay. So we've talked about the Afro Latinas. I want to move on a little bit now to African women. Now, black women from the continent itself. Um, what either experiences or even if it's secondhand knowledge do you have about how culturally they are different from African American women?
Okay, so I will say this: Afro Latinas are very different than Afro Caribbeans as well. And I've dated Afro Caribbeans. I've only dated one African woman. And I haven't been to Africa, but I do deal with a lot of Africans, well, quite a few Africans out here as far as African people. I haven't dated them, but I talk to them. We have a lot of conversations because of the nature of what I do, and particularly the most Africans that are out here are Kenyans. So I know enough about Nairobi, Kenya, stuff like that. We can have a conversation. Kenya is fairly developed, and we have a couple of African clubs out here. So it depends on what generation you're dealing with. Are you dealing with African immigrant? Are you dealing with first gen, second gen? Second gen tend to be pretty much like African American women, light. Like they don't have really. If you come at them, they kind of like when I talk about the 80-20, like 20% of African American women are functional. They tend to be like that. You know what I'm saying? The 20%. So but as far as like immigrants, younger like immigrants or first generation, I mean they tend to be. You almost got to date them like you would date a white chick. Like they look, they're looking more at you. The things that will attract them to you are going to be the things that usually will repel a lot of typical African American women. They're looking for people that talk like they got some sense. They're looking for people that come from a good family because this stuff has been instilled into them. And I'm talking about more positive things, but let's be clear here. I got negatives in the back of my mind with all these people. Like, for instance, with African women, they are taught that white is better. So if they can get a white dude to get one, a lot of them, and you see it when you hear them talk. But at the same time, if you're a black dude coming like you got some sense, then they might be more comfortable with black men. But
Okay.
and then there's an issue a lot of times with dealing with their parents. And their parents, it just depends on how you come. If you're a typical African American dude on typical African American bullshit, then they automatically are not trying to feel you. But if you want some outlier stuff, then they usually are straight. Because it's not hard to separate yourself from what they think of typical African Americans. But no, man, African women are straight. I mean, they're cool to deal with.
Okay, but I want to get into that part specifically about how you talked about how they do this thing where they think white is better. Now, why is that? I mean, you would think that after colonialism, after all the independence movements and all that kind of stuff, and how France basically still to this day pimps their former African colonies and stuff, and pushes them around and bullies them.
Yeah.
You would
Uh,
think
Go
that,
ahead.
that mentality, you know, would be gone. What do you think? Why do you think it's still like that today? Because that's one of the main things that irks me about Africa.
Because Africans are, as a group, they are they are very socially immature. And notice how I used that word. I didn't say they were dumb or anything, but they're just socially immature. They 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 really believe that it's about class because that's what white people tell them. Like white people say the blacks are at the bottom because the blacks have no class, or the blacks have no ambition, and the blacks are lazy. This is the image that they get, that white people give them when they're coming to the United States. Also, you got to understand that only a few people, Africans, are ever allowed to come in the United States. This is particularly why I feel the way I feel with immigration, because why am I going to cater for Hispanics when there's not even enough black people that they let in here? Um, so a lot of times these two people are getting vetted, and when they do get here, they understand. And Trump has made this very clear that they can be sent back at any given time on a whim. So they're always going. So they have kind of like a
Right.
Stockholm, and the
Now,
thing they have a Stockholm syndrome situation too. And as far as what you're talking about with the francophone countries, you gotta understand Africans see themselves as separate tribes. So it's kind of like what's going on with Hispanics. We like that's their fucking problem. That's not our problem. That's how a lot of Africans see each other, even within their own countries. And this is why white people have been able to divide and conquer them like they have, and they still suffer from that. And as far as the independence movements, they don't really game each other up on history like that. It took an Arab Gaddafi to get the closest to really trying to bring them together. That's just real, and they
yeah,
suffer from that.
Muammar Gaddafi.
Yeah, and I'm not the biggest fan of Gaddafi, but I'm just saying it took an Arab to kind of clue that in. And when a lot of these people think they're educated and they come in the United States, just like how our women are. Our women think they're so smart because they got a degree, but don't realize you over $100,000 in debt. And that's if a white person decides to give you a job. This is how Africans are. They come over here and they have this mentality where it's only about class, where that's part of it. But what Africans don't understand is a big reason why Africans do well here is because Africans don't have the same cultural issues that we have in the United States. Because see, that's one thing you've got to understand about colonialism. Colonialism did not destroy their culture because colonialism was about getting the resources out. Black people suffered because we were close to white people as far as proximity within the same country. They had to do other things in order to take us off the game board, meaning they had to over time systematically destroy our culture, even what it meant to be black in the United States. I'm not even talking about slavery. I'm talking about after the fact, when we began to form our own culture with the identity in the United States. They destroyed that too, via the crack era, via the welfare state, stuff like that. Africans never suffered this, but Africans don't understand that this happened to us. Most Africans don't even know what Black Wall Street was. So they don't understand that white people systematically destroyed this shit. They came back and destroyed it. They didn't just black people just were lazy after we were slaves. That's what they think. And part of that is our fault for not communicating our own message. Why does this matter towards intercultural dating? It matters because if you understand that context, then you understand what you need to do and how you need to present yourself to take yourself out of that typical black situation and what they see in hip hop. And it's not hard. You can do it within 10 minutes. All you got to do, and let me say this, all you have to do, if you're talking to a Kenyan, all you got to do is know a couple of tribes, know a couple of cities in Kenya, and they automatically will take you off of that because there's so few African Americans that actually know anything about Africa. It's that the bar is so low. It doesn't take much. And I'm not talking about the African women as much as I'm talking about when you see their parents. And here's the thing. You're gonna meet their parents if you date an African woman. It ain't gonna be no, oh, we just fucking shit. And that's very, very true for Ethiopians. Ethiopians are some of the hardest to catch. But in my opinion, they're some of the best and probably the best marriage material as far as compatibility with African Americans.
Okay.
That's because
Now,
of humanity, by the way.
okay, yeah, that makes sense. And have you noticed, Edward, that that there's all these it seems like these African women, they really celebrate when they get with a white man. They act like that's something to really celebrate and really go, all out for, versus
I'll say this: they tend to not do it as bad as sisters. I'll um you know And another guy to really talk about this that I really am pushing to talk about this more is Dynas from Search for Uhuru, because he's been in Africa more. But they do have that issue, but it tends to not be as bad as sisters. But again, that's because they're celebrating moving up in class. White people are considered the highest class globally. Now, this is not necessarily true, because if you start looking at Slavs and Eastern Europe, that's what white people really live like when they're not in power and all of that. And
Exactly.
not to throw like Eastern Europe under the bus, but Western Europeans and Eastern Europeans are different, because Eastern Europeans didn't do all that colonialization, so they haven't benefited from the inward resources from Africa. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Um, and nobody never really talks about that. And again, I'm not saying again, there's some beautiful Eastern European women, but it's about black people. But they see themselves as moving up in class, so they see that as being upwardly mobile. And you got to understand, most of them can't get a white dude like that. Not because they're ugly, because you know what white people are on. So the reality of the situation is, when they do it, they're going to see that as being upwardly mobile. But here's another thing too: Africans tend to not divorce their culture like that either. Now, let's be clear here. When Africans, when you have kids that are kids of like African women and white men, they tend to have a certain view of African Americans, because again, they're looking at us as a separate tribe, and that fee, and white people give them cognitive, positive reinforcement for doing that. So they don't see it as wrong. See, they don't see it as wrong until they get fucked over. For
Yeah.
instance, that Haitian woman that's married to a white man, and she's a congresswoman in the Republican Party. She had an issue when Donald Trump said Haiti was a shithole country. Why? Because now her
Yeah.
parents is getting flagged. See, now she started to realize, oh, they really think this way about all of us. And even then, when
Exactly.
they talk, you can see the cognitive dissonance, because they really believe this. And keep in mind, that's Haiti. Haiti has the biggest gripe Haiti probably has the biggest gripe with white people of any of most of the countries outside of African Americans, because
Exactly.
Haiti systematically kept fucked over. Yet same mentality.
Absolutely. And just the fact that you bring that up is the hypocrisy of it is insane. And do you know what that congresswoman's name was?
Um, let me see. Let's see. Let's see.
And
Let's see.
what state is she from?
Then Utah, I know.
Okay, yeah.
She's one of these women. Um,
She one of them race don't matter people.
well, she's one of these women that they parade around in order
Yeah.
to say we're not racist.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
her
I,
name is Mia Love.
Mia Love.
Yeah,
Okay. Well,
and Mia Love, and it is what it is. And this is not to say, again, there's a lot of black women like what's the chick, the woman that's the senator of California? She's married to a white dude. I mean, so let's be clear. I'm not dumping on Republican Party, and she does, and on Democrats, when they're like that, they have that all lives matter mentality. In fact, De Blasio, that's the mayor of New York, his wife is black. They tend to, if they're on the D side, they all tend to have the same profile no matter what party. They tend to have this all lives matter, because at that point you
right.
are invested. That's what a lot of black men don't understand. A lot of black people don't understand. When you are dealing black people, our culture, it's not that we don't have culture, it's that we don't take pride in our culture. I'm talking about African Americans. And because
Absolutely.
having a cult, like understanding who you are, like as an African American, where you come from, this culture of revolution, this culture of resilience, this culture of, by all intents and purposes, we should be destroyed as a people, but we're not. Most like See, we always learn about slavery, but in school we don't learn about we really don't learn about Jim Crow like that. We don't learn about Black Wall Street like that. We don't learn about things that we have overcame. And a lot of black people don't have pride in who they are. Not really. And by not having pride, it's like a tree. It's kind of like having one of these small little trees that they put around concert conventions, and it takes one good hack of a hacksaw to take it out, versus those massive trees in like Northern California that they can go like 100 feet tall. That's how
Yeah.
culture is. Literally an operating system. And another thing that people need to understand too is when you deal with a woman. So I say that because oftentimes a person may have a stronger culture than you do, and black men need to be very particular, aware of this, because black men in America have been raised in a matriarchy. So we've been raised to defer more than what we should as an average. So now sometimes that's cool, sometimes that's not. But you gotta, like for instance, this is why I said Ethiopia women tend to be very compatible with African Americans, because if you're somebody that comes from a Christian background, where they come from a Christian background, you're dealing with women that were never conquered. They white people never conquered Ethiopia. They got into Eritrea, which is ethnically the same, but
Right.
never got Ethiopia. So you're dealing with women that even if you defer to their culture, it's it won't be a change. You know what I'm saying? Like that. So
Okay.
it's cool to do that. Even with like Caribbeans and stuff like that, it won't be so much of a change to where your identity is gone. Um, and that stuff is important. And another thing, it's important to get a woman with a strong culture. But if you do that with white people, see, that can fuck you up. That's how you get kids that are whitewashed. That's how you get kids that
Yeah.
identify as white. And a lot of
Exactly.
wealthy don't understand that. A lot of basketball players get caught up in that, don't understand that. Because that family.
Exactly. And see, that's go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, that's another thing, Edward, is that these, when you look at some of these biracial kids, especially these kids, I observe these half white, half black kids, and I notice, like, because when you be seeing them in the community, they be gravitating towards the white culture. Like, they don't really hang out with the other black kids. They kind of play with, they kind of group up with the white kids and shit. And I think, as far as when it comes to intercultural dating with white people, I think white people they really do have that assimilationist mentality. They want to, they get
Yeah,
what
because that's in
they
their
expect.
best interest.
Yeah, they expect, they expect you to assimilate into their culture. But I think a lot of these swirlers, I'm sure of how aware a lot of these black female swirlers are aware of that.
They don't care because that's not why they're dating. They're dating. Look, a lot of there's two types of black women that date out. There's ones that what I call the highest bidder daters. These are women that don't really have issues with African American men, but they don't really have an absolute allegiance to African American men. I deal with women like this all the time. They're very good women. I feel like, damn, man, dudes lost out, but they don't have issues with black men. I deal with them, well, not all the time, but I deal with women like this, and you can tell their profile. You can tell. It's just black men should have got him early. That's the L we got to take. And most black men honestly are like that too. Most black men are like that. Most black men are not color struck. They're the highest bidder, meaning they'll date anybody of any race. Well, not any race. They may have certain preferences. Like black women tend to not gravitate towards Asians like that. You know what I'm saying? Because of their build. But then you have the swirlers, which is who you're talking about. These are women that want to say the problem with the black community is black men, and if I get a white man, I'm gonna be upwardly mobile. But they kind of know that's not as true. But this is a woman that talk about Blackistan. This is kind of like your SYSBM, but for women kind of thing.
Okay.
And I know SYSBM came up after swirling. Your carrots and stuff like that. And they do, but here's the difference. The difference between the interracial daters of black women and then black women are swirlers is they're gonna lie about swirling. They're gonna sell you a narrative. They're gonna act like white men can do no wrong, and when you obviously see them doing wrong, they are going to make excuses for that. Where if a black person did the same thing, like even when white men will sleep with these women and have kids with these women, these women will pay for their schooling and shit, and then they leave them. That happened to Aisha Tyler. Um, all of a sudden, these dudes ain't shit. But when black men do it, black men ain't shit because they are protecting their image of what they want to believe. It really has nothing to do with the white man. It really has more to do with them having this fantasy. These are women that lean a little bit too hard into the Disney movies. of a white
Yeah.
prince. 'Cause it's not about the prince; it's about he's white.
Yeah.
And
Right.
they tend to say, but what a lot of people don't understand, the difference between an interracial dater and a woman that is a swirler has a lot of self-hate issues. It's just how they project it. They project it onto black men. Real talk, they hate black men for even having them. Because you see this in Sage Steele, you see this in Sage Steele has a white father. You see this in but what it really means, they hate being at the bottom in a white supremacist class system when it comes to beauty. And what they tend to do is project that out by blaming that on black men and thinking the solution to that is breeding them out. Hispanics do this like gangbusters. Hispanics have racism even amongst in their family. That's how deep the colorism goes. Black people are not that bad. We may joke about it, and that's bad. Like we may joke, like even in Luke Cage, Black Mariah. She was called Black Mariah because she was dark. But we're Jamaican. But like in a lot of these other cultures, they tend to be very visceral about it to the point where they don't even fuck with certain family members if they're dark enough, or they'll try to whitewash their whole history legacy as if they never existed.
What?
Um,
What?
oh yeah, there's actually a Latin term for it, and the term is it's kind of like manifest destiny, but it's
Okay.
like a creed to breed out your blackness because you
That's
move up.
oh,
It's in almost every Latin family. In fact, Rosario Dawson talked about it in Luke Cage. It was funny. It was a scene in Luke Cage where Luke was talking about, I'm a black man. You don't know what it's like. Basically throwing in you a light skinned color person, but you're light skinned. You're a woman. And then Rosario Dawson came back at him, said, "I don't even need to leave my house to deal with racism." And she went on this diatribe about how you got family members that's so deep in their self hate that they don't even fuck with other family members. Now I know that's fiction,
God.
but that's what very real. Even a Marilyn Negro talked about that. It is in these families. Like a Marilyn Negro will go to the Dominican Republic, even though her family is Dominican, even though she was born in the United States, and she'll be called Haitian. It's there, and it's one of those things to where I am very much aware of that. Like me, I'm a lighter tone African American, but I'm not Steph Curry like if I get in the sun, I can be bright. And I say these things because I am aware of how outside the United States certain people view the stuff. Like most people think I'm Dominican. Most Dominicans think I'm Dominican. And I know because they speak that fast Spanish when they're around me, and I don't even speak Spanish. I've
Okay.
had white cops tell me, "Don't get out of the car, senor."
The fuck?
Yep, and that's happened more than once. Black cops don't do it, but white cops do.
You
Because
say
when they
white cops
eyeball
did
me,
that?
I think it's a part of my height too, but I think when they eyeball me, it's a certain profile. And I've asked, because I used to work in the call center industry, and I've been in the Dominican Republic in Santo Domingo, and they'll tell me if you don't say nothing, maybe how you walk a little bit, but if you don't say nothing and you stand still, they'll think you're just like them. They'll never bat an eye. I've been told that by quite a few people.
Oh,
Um, but in fact, Marcus was just talking. Marcus, shout out to Marcus A. Brown. He was talking about how they have this curfew thing that they do, and they stopped it because in the dark. And Marcus is not dark skinned. They thought that he was Haitian, and then once he started talking, gave him their his credentials. They was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry," because they realized he was American. But they don't play that shit. Yeah, that shit exists, and it exists. Africans is not as bad, but Africans are just more tribal. So once they start, and I've seen Africans fight over tribal differences, even though to me you think they look the same.
okay. Now, bro,
Yeah, go ahead.
now let's move on. I want to talk about like black women in Europe and black women in Canada because I've
Oh,
had my own run-ins with them. I've have found like Canadian black women to be kind of similar, but not all the way similar to African American women. And as far as like European black women, I actually have a cousin who's half German, half black, because my uncle lives in Germany. And she's about my age. We're about the same age, I think. I'm 26. She's about the same age. She's cool and all, but one of the things that I notice about her is that she's by her being European, she's much more well traveled than like African American chicks. Like she can tell she's been to all types of different places, man. She's been to Egypt, she's been to all types of different Asia, I believe, China, whatever. She's been and here I am. I'm 26 years old. I've barely been off the US,
Yeah,
so
that would make sense because does she have dual citizenship in the United States?
no, she was born in Germany, and like I said, her father's black, and her mother was a white German woman, so she's biracial.
So Black American?
No, she's full German. She was
Well,
born.
Black American.
Yeah, her is her father black American?
Yeah.
Absolutely, her father is my
Okay, so
uncle.
he does have dual citizenship because you're born into it. I say that because
She might. I don't know. She might. You know what? I don't think she
you have to
does have
apply
dual
for it.
citizenship.
You don't have to apply for it. It's something you get because you're automatically an American. Yeah, I know this because I've dealt with that mix. And I
Okay.
can actually a lot to that. See, I'm not saying look, part of it is culture, obviously with the well travel part, but at the same time, the German and American visa, the German American passport, I don't know now what Trump's done to it, but the German and American dual citizenship is the strongest dual citizenship you can have because Germany unlocks a lot of visas that America doesn't have, and then America has a broad amount of visas as well. So I know quite a few German. I will say this: Tia Tamir Mori are black and German. Boris Kojo is black and German. I
Okay.
think Nazi Beats is black and German. Actually, the chick off Atlanta, um, and she was Domino. Just so people can eyeball what I'm talking about. They are the difference between Europeans is they're very much it depends. Are you dealing with biracial people or are you dealing with Africans? Because those are two different mixed bags. Africans are going to operate more like immigrants, in which they're going to operate more like where they come from, versus first gen versus biracial people tend to be a little bit more assimilated.
Okay.
Um, and assimilated just means that they're gonna be kind of like Xanatos Clutch. They're gonna sound. I don't mean to say they sound white in a bad way, but they're not gonna really have a slang or dialect. It's not necessarily whitewashed. They're gonna be more like a blank slate. So they're like I put them in a neutral zone. I don't put them in an automatic black category. It just depends on how they want to come at it. But I will say it's better dealing with. I will say if you want to have a genetic talk, it's much better dealing with somebody like that than it is dealing with a straight up like white person. Not because here's the thing, a lot of women like that um again, a lot of women like that tend to they do value both of their sides, and they're not going to be on this. You get with them, and then all of a sudden, your kids are going to be whitewashed or something like that. That tends to not happen. And the black and German is one of the most best looking combinations because they both have strong genes. But biracial people that are black and German, they tend to be very genetically strong because German people are very genetically strong as well as black people. So you're getting like, yeah.
Yeah, because
Uh,
she kind of, I'll describe her a little bit. She kind of got, she is, she's my cousin, so I'm not looking at her like that, but she is kind of cute. She got that, that black woman's kind of body, you know what I mean?
yeah,
But
no, I've got it's not tragic mulatto looking shit. I have like in fact on my Instagram, like a lot of the stuff that I'm describing, including Africans, Afro Latinas, I'm not talking about pictures of like thoughts or anything. I'm talking about majestic looking women and that are cool. And I've met these women straight up. Like in fact, oh my god, I just met a woman. She had to be like in her like 41, 42, because you can kind of tell with her neck. You know how like you look young, but with that neck, you can kind of see when they talk. It's not really cracking, but it's not as tight. It's tight, but you know what I mean. This chick was
yeah,
very beautiful, gorgeous, and her husband was European, so he's most likely white. But she had traveled around. She happened to be here, but she was from New Jersey, and so culturally, when I say culturally, I'm talking about the femininity piece. You're gonna get a lot, and a lot of dudes, because dudes are visual, they don't understand it. That added, that's almost like a perfume. So that's the only mix that I would put above that I've seen that I would put above black and German is Asian and Brazilian. but that's so incredibly rare. Japanese and Brazilian. That's an incredibly rare combination. But as far as dealing with black people in Canada, again, they tend to be a little bit more assimilated because, again, Canada did not operate on the one drop rule and separation because and keep in mind, Canada only has 35 million people and their black population is very small. It's smaller as a percentage than what our percentage is in the United States. So they don't have that genetic threat. So they tend to not deal with that separation stuff we deal with here. I'm not saying Canada doesn't have their own issues, but if you're dealing with Canadian women, it's kind of like dating suburban black women where they tend to have a valley girl vibe. And not in a bad way, but the way they sound, the way they go about it tends to be
Okay.
like white women
To
dip the
be
chocolate.
honest, I kind of like that. Like, I kind of like the whole Crystalline Karazine, like Valley Girl thing. Where they speak proper English.
Oh
They
no, it's great. She
have,
just can't stand black men. Like how she sounds and how she looks is not the issue. It's what comes out of her mouth. Exactly.
no, you're talking about Crystalline, right?
Yeah, but how she
Well,
sounds and how
yeah.
she looks is not the issue. You're right.
Well, if you look at Crystalline's whole platform, her whole platform is really about that she got her heart broken by one black man. Okay, and
Yeah, her
because she got her heart broken by one black man, now it calls for this whole swirling campaign.
no,
Okay, but
absolutely.
here's the thing. Let me just say this too. Crystalline Karazine is not really a true in my opinion, she's not a true bedwench. And you know why?
Why?
Here's why I say that, because I went to high school with this one girl, right? When I was in high school, I went to a diverse high school. But there was one white dude that I went to high school with, but he was Russian though, right? And he was a Russian immigrant, right?
Yeah.
And so senior year, I had a class with this dude, but he started telling me about like all the black girls he had been smashing and shit, and how that was his thing. Well, there was this one black girl in the class, and I still remember her name today. I'm not gonna say her name on camera, but she was very adamant about the fact that he only dated like white guys. Like, it wasn't even like no negotiation. It wasn't like she was dating black dudes and she broke up.
A
Might have
lot more black women date will fuck white guys and
no,
black women.
let me finish. What happened is, no, this is a true blue, like just from birth, okay? Only attracted to white boys, only like white boys, only fucked with white boys, only participated in white culture. Okay, talk like a straight up Valley girl, had no I did not identify with black people, period, at all. That right there is a true, what I call a true Bedouin. Okay, if you were to put her in a room with other black women, she wouldn't even be able to relate to other black women.
Yeah,
And you
no,
know how women
I,
are.
I understand that, but my thing is, look, my thing is, you get what you give. So I don't. If there's a woman like that, see. Here's the thing: when I call a black woman a bedouin, we got to be very clear on what terms are. It's not about a woman that only likes white men. It's a woman that will usurp their own community to please a white man. That's the difference. And in that situation, if it's like a chick where like, look, man, I just don't identify with the culture. But I mean, if you ask me about black people, I'm gonna be like, what about black people? I don't care. You see what I'm saying? I don't really consider that a bed wench. A bed wench, kerosene actually does damage because look, kerosene sells this narrative. It's not about who you're having sex with. Like some of the biggest coons only have sex with black women. A lot of people don't realize that. And what a lot of the thing you got to understand about carrots, and I'm not trying to throw carrots under the bus, and I understand, and I agree with what you said, which is what the why is. But when you sell this, look, I tell you, I tell black women a lot. If you don't like black men, go get you a white dude or a Hispanic dude. There's a fence, go hop it. I'm confident in telling them that, not because I believe they can't do it, but because they're gonna find out that the problem is their attitude and their culture. The problem is how they go about the world. And I know if they're matriarch minded and they want to say that's not true, well, I say if that's not true and black men are really an issue, then go get you a white man or go get you a Latin dude. Because if you're really not matriarchal, then you're not going to have a problem doing that and getting a committed relationship. Because there's a difference between getting these guys to have sex with you and getting these guys to show put you on their arm and to commit to you. A lot of black women don't understand that. See, today's women in America believe that if you get a dude to sleep with you, that's as good as marriage. That's that single motherhood mentality, even if you're not a single mother, because they wanna have resources based on having children versus a commitment that a man had. And the reason why a lot of black women don't get white men is not because they don't want them, it's because they're not checking for them, and that's just a fact. Now, that's not because black women are ugly, that's just because, white dudes, it's a beauty standard that white people put out there. Now, going back to the international stuff, and understand something. International black people from Europeans is a mixed bag, because when you talk about mixes, which means each mix is going to be different depending on what the culture is, the national stuff is. When you're looking at just straight up black people, understand that African Americans tend to get favorable treatment in Europe compared to Africans, so that's a big part. Understand white people in Europe are a little bit different than white people in the United States. That's a big thing a lot of people don't understand. I'm talking about Western Europe in particular, because we tend to get the benefit of the doubt, like Africans get the benefit of the doubt here. So that's something to keep in mind. Um, it's a lot of nuances to that. So I tend to not stick to like in Europe and stuff. I will say this: another thing people never talk about is there's a lot of highly melanated people in Asia as well, and that's technically kind of in the middle because it's kind of like interracial dating. But if you deal with a dark skinned Thai woman, I mean, she's just as black as you. But see, that's where black women will talk that phenotype bullshit. Philippines is a lot darker than what people would think. Cambodia is a lot darker than what people would think. But it does range. So I mean, obviously with Indians, I mean, Indian women have cultural differences, are phenotypically different than black people, but they can get dark too. A big reason why
Yeah,
Indian women
and
lead the way
another thing, bro,
don't.
I want to say about these Indian chicks. I don't know if you watch Indian porn or anything, but
I
them Indian women, they be having some big, nice, voluptuous asses, man.
the best Indian women that I've seen, because with an Indian woman, if I were to date an Indian woman, and keep in mind, I don't count dating Indian women or Asian women as intercultural dating. I want to be clear, but I did want to add that in there. You want to
Okay.
get some really good looking Indian women, you need to take your ass to Houston, because they are assimilated enough to where they're eating a little bit
Wait,
of
wait, go
meat.
where? Go where?
Houston, Texas.
Houston. Okay.
That's where the best ones are, because they work out, they eat a little, they got a little bit of meat protein, more protein in them, and a big reason why they have kind of this sagging skin and stuff like that sometimes is because they are vegans, and when they eat, and so that fat is not really tightened up, but a lot of them are starting to learn how to do that, and when they tighten their bodies up, I mean, they're damn near drop dead gorgeous,
Yeah,
so
but
a lot of that is
yeah,
cultural. So that's why I say more similar. I've seen some Indian women that are on point. And now I'm talking about darker skinned Indian women. I'm not even talking about
yeah.
like a Priyanka Chopra. But going back to the traditional diaspora type of women, my point is, as a black man, and look, black women need to start expanding their horizons as far as the diaspora too. But the problem is black men are more patriarchal in the diaspora. So if you pull that shit, you're gonna run into the same things you're gonna run into dating interracially, meaning that attitude is gonna have to be let go. And if you can't do that, that's why they typically don't do that, because only black men will put up with their shit in America. But as far as black men, once you start expanding your horizons, damn Europe and Eastern Hemisphere. Even if you do that in the islands and in Latin America, man, if you're a black man and you learn, I'm not saying you don't have to learn Spanish, but you want to deal with more authentic Afro Latinas too. Especially if you're looking at something like getting married. But even if you learn Spanish, it's wide open. And even if you don't learn Spanish, if you expand the game board, you're dealing with your access to black women is tenfold, because it's only what It's 48 million black people in America. Half of that, a little bit more than half of that is women. So let's say 48 billion. Let's say 20 million and 22 million is women. Cut that in half as far as adults. That's 11 million female adults. We already know the stats as far as obesity. Like like 50% of women over the age of 20 and over are obese. That's not even counting overweight. Then you're looking to see motherhood. So we already know those stats. You go overseas, and now those numbers are getting diluted because you're dealing with a lot more women. Then culturally, you're dealing with women that's going to appreciate a protector and a provider more than what black women will in America, because a lot of black women in America view white daddy, aka the government, as their protector and provider, or corporate America as their protector and their provider. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. I feel we had a good hangout. We've gone 54 minutes. Edward, do you mind doing a back-to-back hangout? Because I wanted to do another hangout if you had time, and I wanted to really want to talk about the global white supremacy. Would you mind doing that?
Um. Okay. Yeah. No, I got time. I got time.
Okay, cool.
So,
Because I'm gonna
so you want to hang out and start another one?
yeah, I want to end this one. So this one's going to be its own thing. Then I want to go ahead and start another one and talk about global white supremacy.
Okay, so I'm gonna hang up right now and then hit me up
Okay.
with the next.
Okay, I'll send you the link.
All right, peace.
Good shit though, bro.
No, absolutely. I mean, I like this video because this is a good primer to kind of let people know what's there, some typical FAQ questions, and then I'm definitely gonna share this out because this is something that needs to be talked about a lot more in the manosphere, because we got too many dudes that's doing too much. Look, when I say bitching, I understand the issues that black men have, but at some point we got to have the now what conversation, and this is a part of that. So anyway, let's go to the next one. Oh, by the way, hit me on my channel. Just type in Edward Anderson in the YouTube search, and my stuff will come up. I'm the Morpheus thing, and then you can hear some good shit like this. And City, make sure you hit me out on a hangout, but we'll talk about that later. So let me end this right now.
Okay.
Peace.